Hello, all, and welcome back to another episode of Movies and Us, a weekly gathering place filled with conversations about movies, stories, and connection. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And today we are going to be reviewing the latest installment in the Fast and Furious franchise, Fast X. Not to be confused with Fast 10, which is in another multiverse exists. It's actually Fast X. We are like the Apple iPhone here. We're cool and hip and trendy with Fast X.
I mean, but let's just think about the ridiculousness of the names of the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Yes.
They started being foolish many, many movies ago. So it's only fitting that this would be Fast X.
Yes.
I guess my question is, because this is the first of a 3-part whatever finale, I guess. Is this going to be Fast X and then Fast 2X and then Fast Triple X? Are we doing that? Are we going to go back to Fast 11? What is our naming convention here? Because it's been all over the map for a long time. What foolishness are they going to bring to us next?
My favorite one has always been Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yes. It's great. So good. Gotta do it.
I just think it's interesting that they're going to be ending on 13. What an odd number. At least could we have rounded up?
No,
apparently not, because that's too logical.
Maybe lucky number 13? I don't know. Also,
I like the Fast 2X, Fast 3X approach. That's a good proposal.
Yeah. We'll see what they do. We can be certain it's going to be not that.
Right.
There
aren't fun puns with 11.
No, what? I don't know.
Or 12. Well, I guess no, they would be ending on 12.
They would be
take everything back. Yes. There will never be a 13.
Jen. Never say never. With the Fast and the Furious, come on now. They can produce a million more of these movies that just get increasingly ridiculous.
I did have a thought during this where I was like, they could be setting themselves up for an extended universe of generational storytelling here, which I just feel like is such a marketing scam to tell us that this is going to be the final trilogy. Yes. But it's really not. But we're all going to go see them because it's the final storyline.
Well, and then they just have to wait 10 years, and then they can reboot it again with little Brian and his merry band of car driving people.
That's what I'm saying.
They got it.
The number of times that it was said, you are the next generation, son. I was like, wow. That's a good setup. I see what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You're not subtle at all.
No,
but you've never been subtle, so.
No. It's the Fast and the Furious.
It's part of the charm.
We don't come to these movies for subtlety.
No. I mean, there's far too much nuances and guessing in normal human interactions. We come here for the literal. Absolutely. Tell me what I'm supposed to feel, please.
Yeah, buddy. That's all we want. Just tell us.
Okay, well, Sarah, kick us off with an IMDb summary for Fast X.
Before I read this, I want you to know that there are 2 summaries on IMDb.
Oh, okay.
One is a sentence. Great, amazing. That is the one I will be reading. The other one is so long. It takes up, I have to scroll twice to get through
a full synopsis.
All of it. It is a whole synopsis. And I see the number, or I see the word Oscar.
Oh, no.
4 or 5 times.
Oh, no.
Because it's Oscar winner Helen Mirren, Oscar winner Charlize Theron, Oscar winner Brie Larson, Oscar winner Rita Moreno.
You can only have Oscar that many times in your summary if you have a character whose name is Oscar. Okay, people? We're not trying to name drop here that we have all these star-studded people. Which they do.
Have stuffed everybody's name into this thing. It is incredible how many names are on this. They made sure that we knew that everyone and their mom is in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and
anyway,
so lineup.
They
They
do.
do.
They do. Okay, so here is the one sentence summary.
Okay.
Dom Toretto and his family are targeted by the vengeful son of drug kingpin Hernan Reyes. Easy. So
I
simple.
thought there was going to be more, but that was
No,
it. It
that
just
was
it
it.
ended.
Just one sentence.
As literal as the charm of the movie it's describing. Straightforward to the point. No guessing here. Nope.
No.
I love
That
it. How
that's
comforting.
yep, that's what it is.
Okay, and what was your one sentence summary for Fast X?
Mine is nothing, not laws, physics, or logic can break up this family.
Oh no, yeah. Yeah. Nothing can break up this family. They are apparently like all superheroes.
Absolutely.
They're all like just equipped with blessings from superhero gods.
Yeah, man. Like, if you're going to assemble a family, why not do it with all these people who have superpowers? It's
Mm-hmm.
only logical. Pick the
Right.
best of the best.
This is the Avengers
Yeah.
in the alternate universe where
Yes.
instead of like an object that is iconic for each one's personal brand, it's just their precision driving.
Yeah, man. It's great.
Who needs Thor's hammer when you've got a car?
Yeah.
Good old American muscle.
And that is the Fast and the Furious way. You have learned all you need to know about this franchise. That's all you need. You got it.
It's great. I would love to live in the Fast and Furious universe where things are that simple. I aspire for that. My one sentence summary is just like a circus act, how many charismatic meatheads can we shove into one movie? Apparently a lot more than we thought.
There's always room for more. Fret not.
Oh my goodness.
There will be more in the next 2 movies, probably.
I know. They just assemble all of the very large, muscular men in Hollywood.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you want to join the club?
Yeah. You're not
and
wrong.
Everyone says yes.
Yep. That's how it works. That is how we have gotten to the point that we're at.
Okay, so let's dive in with our initial thoughts about Fast X. And you probably know the formula for Fast and Furious movies, but alas, we will not spoil the ending. And we will include all of our conversation about the ending and really entering spoiler territory in the second half. So, Sarah, tell me your thoughts about Fast X.
Okay, so I do have a question very quickly.
Okay.
What is your relationship with the Fast and the Furious franchise?
That is a good question. I think that I remember distinctly the first Fast and Furious movie I saw was the Fast Five in Shanghai, which was such a funny experience watching that in Chinese with a fully Chinese audience. By the way, that they love the Fast and Furious franchise over there.
Wow.
And I think honestly, I started out with one of the best ones. So yes. All of the other ones were just kind of like, okay, I can see how all of these people, all their intersecting storylines and all that kind of stuff. But I watched a 10-minute summary of all 9 other movies, actually 10 because there's Hobbs and Shaw, to try and cram in before the test. And I still was trying to figure out who was who and all of their vendettas against each other. I'm glad I watched that video because I think I would have been far more lost than I was. But I do not keep any of these human beings' relationships straight as far as their relationships with each other. What about you?
I mean, to be fair, there are a million of them. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot to keep straight over way too many movies to keep track of. So I completely understand. I haven't seen all of the movies in the Fast franchise, but I've seen most of them. I think I've missed like 2 of them, but again, there's so many movies. Who could say? But yeah, I watched, I think 1 and 2, like, I don't know, a decade ago. Like I watched them well after they had originally come out, and then I caught myself up. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty well versed, and even there were some people that I was like, "Oh man, you look vaguely familiar, but I don't know how you relate to the storyline," because I did not do the logical thing, and I did not watch a 10-minute recap video before I watched this. I should have been more prepared, but I was not. But anyway, it is what it is. I had a great time. It's not a good movie. It's not, but it's a lot of fun, and it is the mindless entertainment that I have come to expect when I come into the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I found so funny reading about it after I had watched the movie is that the director wanted to make sure that this movie was more grounded than
Oh
the
my God,
previous
yes.
movie. And when I read that, I just thought to myself, nope, this is somehow a less believable movie to me than the previous one where they go to space in a car. So, like, this movie is just utter foolishness. And I had a great time. And it seemed like a lot of the actors were also having a great time, which also just made it more fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also really funny to think about how this franchise has changed so much over time. Like, I rewatched the first two films fairly recently, and watching those and then seeing
Mm.
what this franchise has become is just fascinating, because this just started out as some dudes who were into cars and were street racers, and then has become the foolishness that is Fast and the Furious. And so it's just also interesting to think about the trajectory and how much this has changed, and honestly been probably shaped by the superhero rise, uh, and how some of that has found its way in there. So it's just, it's interesting how this has evolved, and I'm very curious to see where they go next, because they've done a lot. Where
They've
else can you go
done
to one up yourself?
so much. I mean, like the set piece of where the car chase scenes happen is like a character in and of
Yes.
itself.
Yes.
And I'm glad they're apparently saying this is the last three movies that they're going to do, because I think it's just going to be harder and harder to do something that feels believable and realistic. I do wonder, like, when in the timeline of the past, was it like 22 years or something crazy like that? When in this franchise did we go from, no, we're going to take ourselves really seriously and do these street racing scenes, to like, things have become a formula and let's just give the people what they want because they eat it up and they love it every time, like, when did we distinctly make a little bit of a shift into that territory and then fully just commit to that path? Because so these movies feel like they lean into the ridiculousness of it all at this point. And
Mm-hmm.
I am just intrigued by the fact that you watched the first two more recently and feel that contrast and that difference. And it's just funny to think about where along this timeline did we take a little turn onto a different path and just go for it and embrace that that's part of our franchise's brand.
Yeah, I think that it happened maybe around the fifth movie. Like, it was obviously like a slow descent, but like the first two, very grounded in reality. The third, Tokyo Drift, which honestly is one of my faves, which is an unpopular opinion, uh, is still like fairly realistic. It's just all about drifting, though the acting is horrible in that. And so then I think probably around movie five, and then just from there, it's gotten more and more
Mm.
ridiculous. And I think for a while, and man, I'm just gonna need to watch all these movies again to better chart this. But I feel like for a while they were being ridiculous, but like there was a seriousness about it. And now we've gotten to the point where it's just so ridiculous that the movie makes fun of itself, like over and over and over again in this movie. They're clearly making fun of it. And that just
Mm-hmm.
makes it more fun to watch, I think. Like,
Yep.
we all know that this is ridiculous, and it's a great time, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That self-awareness is very healthy. Love to see
Yes,
it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I had a great time with this movie as well. What a beginning to the summer blockbuster season to start off with Fast X. I think that it's great to watch big action sequences, for to watch things get blown up, and to watch Vin Diesel apparently have like a sheen covering his entire body where he just can't ever be burned or injured at all. Like, talk
Mhm.
about the ultimate plot armor.
Yep.
Dominic Toretto for sure wins the award. Um, there's some interesting stuff that this movie does with certain lines about like they're directed at Dom around, like the future won't have men driving behind them anymore. Like, it's all going to be blah blah blah. So there's these like interesting little bits that they're throwing in, these little sprinkles on top around technology and how it's going to shape the future. And it all feels very meta and winking in a lot of ways. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Top Gun Maverick actually also had a couple lines that were similar in nature, which is just like very self reflective for the movie to do. Um, I thought that the some of the scenes were shot just like in such an interesting way. They kind of reminded me of the way music videos are shot, where everything about the lighting and the coloring and the acting is like turned up by 10x and drama, and all of the emotions are like heightened. And the entire movie does this, which I just thought was like interesting and fun to watch. Doesn't make it a good movie, but it's very entertaining. So I'm intrigued to talk with you about Jason Momoa as the villain in this, and your thoughts on how they constructed him and how he did. He seems to be having the time of his life doing this thing. So great for Jason Momoa, but I'm curious your thoughts on that. So we should talk about that at some point too.
Do you want to talk about him right now?
Let's do it. I think let's include our spoiler alert. So if you
Excellent.
haven't seen Fast X, it is out in theaters. You can't watch a Fast and Furious movie not in theaters. Come on, y'all. So go check it out and come back and continue to listen, because we're entering spoiler territory. Okay, let's talk about Jason Momoa as a villain. What did you think? How did it work for you?
I don't know. I struggled. Um he's obviously having the time of his life. He is having fun. And so like that was fun to watch, but I struggled with this villain. Uh I don't know, man. I had a hard time believing it. Um but he was having fun. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll enjoy this too because you as the actor are having fun. But he wasn't my favorite villain.
Yeah, I was especially I think when we near the third act of this movie, I was like, man, I think this movie would be even stronger if they done that, just tonally done something a little bit different with him as the villain, or given him a little bit more meat and potatoes. Um, I wonder if they're setting up like Jason Momoa's the villain in this movie, but there's more people behind him or whatnot that they're setting up for the later movies. Because if he's our primary foe for the next two movies and we're going out with this big bang, I just think he can't hold up for that much of a responsibility to do. His backstory is just, pretty generic. We've seen it a million times before. Like, you killed my family, I'm going to come for yours. We've seen that a million times. I thought that some of the like playfulness of him as a villain reminded me a little bit of the characterization of the Joker, where there's this kind of like maniacal like pleasure and fun that he feels like he gets to have being an agent of chaos. But there were some moments where it gets a little bit more maniacal that I loved. For example, the scene where um, they race against each other plus two other people in Rio. And there's this like question posed on like who will you save, and we see Jason
Mhm.
Momoa like cackling ferociously, but it's accompanied by like a pretty dramatic and difficult decision for our protagonist. And I thought that pairing worked really well. But when he's like painting his toenails with like two people that he's like killed but then reconstructed together, I was like, okay, I'm not, this is a little too far. You're a little bit more clownish now. And I think it tanks a little bit of the believability and like the fun of having a really menacing foe that you're up against. So I think tonally, had they just toned back a little bit of the um playfulness of him as a villain and lean and paired that a little bit more with some of these, I think candidly, like a little bit more like dramatic and violent scenarios, I think it would have worked a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. And I also am curious what they're going to do in the next movie because we see
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of former foes teamed up with Dom and his crew. And so it does seem like Dante is going to be the big bad that they're trying to take down. Uh, but I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to work out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He doesn't have the same juice the way that Thanos has to be the primary villain that everyone, all of the people that we're rooting for, are up against. Unless this becomes like
Mhm.
Fast and Furious meets Succession, and it's all about the betrayals of all of these other foes against Dom and his now very large extended family. He
Well, and
just adopts new people, even his past foes. He's like,
he
yeah,
does.
sure.
Yeah, man.
You can be part of the
It's
clan.
family. Yeah. Um, but that's a good comparison with Thanos because like we built up to Thanos over multiple movies,
Mm-hmm.
and so we knew him even before we saw him. We knew the threat of Thanos, and they just kind of retconned Dante into this
Yes.
whole franchise, which has been a consistent theme across all the movies. They're just retconning people in. So like it's fine. It's just what they do. But if we were building to this point, I think a better way to do it would have been to have him show up earlier rather than just trying to like shoehorn him into a previous movie and then voila, he's the main protagonist. Like I to me that's not enough to make for a really really good antagonist. You need some more meat there, especially if he's going to be going up against this beloved family plus former adversaries. Like I think you just need more there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And if we're going out with a bang, we need a good foe. So
We
I'm intrigued to
do.
see what they do next. It
Mm-hmm.
is fascinating that they have all of these former foes, little mini foes along the way, um, kind of interacting with, teaming up with, after some fighting first. Got to do the little
Of
fighting, the angry
course.
fighting for all of our
Yes.
revenge, our pent up anger. And
Well,
then now we're a team now, apparently.
and
Um,
also like given who the foes are, like Jason Statham, yes, you're gonna need a fight scene. Charlize
so good.
Theron, yes, you're gonna need at
So
least
good.
one fight scene, if not more, because honestly, her and Jason Statham fighting are the most believable things in this entire
The
movie.
best part,
So
honestly.
you
Yes.
have to have those.
Yeah, I mean, my hot take is that I think the scenes where it doesn't involve any of the cars and it's just Charlize fighting and Jason Statham fighting were my favorite scenes. Like it just is a true action movie at that point. It's not even a Fast and Furious movie, but those were the most thrilling and exciting to watch.
Hmm. Yeah, and definitely the most believable.
So, can we get the two of them to just be the primary foe? Because they're electric.
Honestly, and like they make such good foes too. Like
Yeah.
their performances and also their motivations as
Mm-hmm.
foes, I think, make a lot of sense, and they were able to be strong enough to carry the movies that they were in.
Yes.
But of course, now we have this interesting like kind of won over, but not fully part of the team. So if there could be some betrayal to get them
I would
onto
love some
Dante's
betrayal.
side, that would be interesting. I don't know that they're going to go there, though.
Ah, but that would be so
That
fun.
would be so fun. And I feel like we need more people on Dante's side. Like, I feel like this needs to be like Civil War, like Avengers Civil War, Captain America Civil War, whatever that movie is called, where the team is broken in half and fighting against each other. I feel like that's more of the calculus of what we need in these movies
Mhm.
rather than all of the Avengers versus Thanos.
Not us using Marvel's like formula as
But like,
a rubric and skeleton for this other ridiculous action franchise.
but I mean,
But
it
yeah,
basically
it
is a
works.
superhero franchise
It
at
makes
this
sense.
point. Like,
Yeah,
they all
they have more
became
in common than they
superheroes.
do
Yeah.
differences at this point. Yeah. I think I thought Cypher as a villain for I think at least two of the previous movies, right? Uh was pretty compelling. Like I will buy in more to a villain who wants to just control the world because power and because that's exciting. I buy that a little bit more than this son of a drug lord that is just seeking revenge on the person that killed his father and is
Mhm.
willing to go to this much extent to carry out his personal vendetta against this one man who killed his father. It just seems like a lot of work to do that for this one human than someone like Cypher who's just like, let me build my entire infrastructure and technology and hired hands and create an army because I'm trying to take over the world. I'm not trying to do this like one-to-one vendetta thing. I want to dominate everyone. That I can buy into a lot more and is I think a little bit more believable for these like big set pieces than kind of just like personal revenge situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggled with the whole I'm I'm going to make you suffer by targeting your entire family that you have assembled because
Yes.
you took out my dad
Yes.
when like we've never seen you before. Like again, like if this is where we're building to, we could have sprinkled some things throughout to like, oh, he has a son. That
Mhm.
yeah, that would have been great information to have. And maybe they said that in the movie. I don't know. It's been so long since I watched Fast Five. But I don't again, they did not
Who
take the
are you?
Marvel approach. They have taken the DC
No.
approach. But
Yes.
thankfully, the Fast and the Furious franchise is a lot more fun than the DC movies have been. So
Yeah.
we still continue to watch them, even though they make no sense. But we also don't come to these for the story. We come for the foolishness,
That is true.
and it
Yes. So
delivers.
everything that we're saying is just the sprinkles. The cake is
True.
great. The explosions are great. The car chase scenes are great. They're all fun. This is
Yes.
just the sprinkles. That moment when you've created a franchise where the story are the sprinkles, you know you've done something good. You know, like you've achieved greatness because usually this is the meat and potatoes, is the storyline and the narrative arc and the characters. But somehow we're like, yeah, we could do
Mhm.
without them.
Yeah,
The
man.
cake still tastes great.
Yeah, just tell us what we're tasting, and then we're going to taste that thing and
Yeah.
have a fun time doing it.
One thing that I gathered from this my 10-minute cram sesh was apparently everyone just is immortal. Like no one can die. Even if they so when John Cena, Uncle I forget his name, the uncle character
Jacob.
dies, I'm like, he's not dead. He's coming back in the next movie for sure. There's no
Well,
way.
and so okay, one of the things that frustrated me about this movie is that apparently Giselle is back. And that is so I have appreciated that the Fast and the Furious franchise has been willing to kill off certain characters. They will bring them back, i.e., Han, because Han is the best, and they were right to bring back Han, even though it makes no sense. But they killed off Giselle, they killed off the Elena, they've killed off other people too. And so I
Is
was like,
Giselle who plays Giselle?
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Okay.
And so when I saw her again, I was just annoyed because now are we just going to undo all of these beloved characters that you have killed off, which was a good idea to kill them off, but now we're just going to bring people back.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying.
Yes, people can rise from the dead in this universe.
Yes, I see. That is my fault for forgetting that they are all superheroes, all of them. And we're even going to go back in time and bestow superhero abilities on
Into the
people
past.
in previous movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's my bad. I forgot that we can do that.
Mm-hmm. we we wave our magic wand
We do.
and anything can happen, including
Indeed.
apparently you can shoot a car into space. I
Yeah, man.
did not watch that movie, but I watched the scene in my 10-minute cram sesh and I was like, this is there's never a line for the Fast and Furious universe, but if there was, we had crossed it. But there isn't a line, so we haven't crossed it.
There's no line because we waved it away with our magic wand.
Yes.
And honestly, like the the ninth movie,
So
Fast
bad.
9, was one of the funniest movies that I've watched recently. And not because the movie was trying to be funny, just because it was so stupid and I had a great time and it was hilarious. So I do recommend watching that movie if you need a good laugh because it's very silly, especially the going into space scene. Very, very
And
silly.
it just looks so bad.
It looks so bad.
Terrible.
Yeah, it does. But it's great. Why not? We can launch a car into space.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating because there's another franchise that also teetered on this line of being absolutely ridiculous, which is the Bond series, the Bond franchise movies. But they somehow like brought it back down to earth with the Daniel Craig movies because there was a period of time where we were like taking out satellites in space and going like the villains' plans got bigger and bigger and bigger. Especially I think in the Pierce Brosnan era of movies. But somehow we brought it back down to this like really gritty, moody story with the Craig movies. So I'm like, it will never happen with Fast and Furious, but it's fun to think about if we eventually get back to just the like bread and butter of maybe Lil B comes back and it's just now car races.
I mean, that would be really fun. Maybe that's where you need to start, though. I don't think you can reboot the franchise in 10, 15 years and start with cars launching into space. Like, I feel like you have to start back where we started, and Little B is a street racer and somehow something.
That actually would be genius if they did that because
I think that's how you have to do it.
They'll do what they do with all the characters, which is they're going to be born again and resurrect themselves.
Absolutely.
To only descend into absolute chaos.
Yes.
12 movies later. And then you do the whole thing again, you know? And but what's funny is that there's a new generation that will grow up with that set of movies. I think that's what's been fun and interesting about a lot of these franchise movies that come back and kind of have the cyclical nature is that new younger people going to these movies are going to follow this journey of this new character. So I mean it kind of works. It kind of works. Unfortunately, they'll keep making the money.
It sure does. It's also crazy to think that this franchise started 20 years ago.
Right? Yes.
It's a little hard for me to
wrap my head around
that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's still working great for them. So
it's still doing its thing. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay. Other things that we wanted to talk about.
So how did you feel about the way that the movie ended? Because it's a little abrupt and a little I don't know, a little discombobulated.
Yeah, it is. I think it it helped knowing that this was part of a trilogy beforehand and they didn't do what Dune did, which is I had no idea that that was only part one. And so when Dune part one ended, I was like, wait, hold on. I'm emotionally invested and I feel cut off now. I actually think that they should have cut it off one scene earlier than they did, is my perspective.
Yeah.
I think that if they ended with the cut to black with Dom and Lil B amidst the raging fire burning all around them, but they are unscathed, and just cut it there with the words of, I think, Jason Momoa's words of like, this is the end for you, and he's like gearing up to have all of the whole thing blown up. I think that would have been such an exciting ending. But no, we get another run, like one more extra scene with the gals in Antarctica, which I think for people that probably are more informed and educated about all of the events and the reveal of Gal Gadot's character probably is the punchline of this movie that they wanted to really land home. But for people that don't remember who the heck she was, it just kind of feels like an extra little scene that takes away from the impact of the like gasp, is Dom and Lil B gonna get blown up at the base of this dam or not? I think that would have been a punchier ending, but
yeah, no, I completely agree. It felt like an end credit scene that they just moved up to the end of the movie.
Yeah,
because it's not a long scene.
no,
And
not
so
at all.
you go from this like emotional moment with Dom and the kid and like, oh my gosh, how are they going to get out of this? And then you cut very quickly to Antarctica to reveal Gal Gadot. And I mean, it looked terrible. It was very bad green screen work, but whatever, it's fine. And then the movie's over.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing this to me?
Why did it end there?
Why did we end there? So I wonder if this was originally supposed to be like a mid-credit or a post-credit scene, and then they just moved it up because they wanted everybody to see that Giselle was going to come back. Is my best guess, because it doesn't make sense for it to end that way.
No, I agree. I agree. Which I did not stay for any of the post credit stuff. And apparently there is a mid credit scene. Did you stay?
Yes. Yes.
You did. How did
I
you
did.
know to stay? How was any I need like an announcement before any movie starts, like, hello everybody, please stay for the credits, because you might have a little surprise waiting for you. Because we know to do it for the Marvel movies, but there's been another movie franchise that has had a mid-credit scene. I think it might have been John Wick. I don't remember.
It was John Wick. Yes.
How are we supposed to know?
The only reason that I knew was because, number one, no one else in my theater moved.
How did they know?
There were a whole 7 other people and none of them moved. And so I went, okay, I guess I'm going to stay here. And also the lights stayed dark. And then as soon as the mid credits was over, the lights came on. And so then I was like, oh, okay, we can leave.
Ah, so it's the lights.
It's a visual cue.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good to know from next time.
But yes, a heads up would be really helpful. If we can get better about that, that would be nice.
Well, now I know. Now I know.
Look at the lights. And I don't know, I'm assuming that all theaters do that, but I know the theaters that I've been to have done the lights that way.
Mm-hmm. I think that tracks with my past experiences, at least with the Marvel movies. Because then everyone gets up and does the stretching and all that kind of stuff, because it's been a 3-hour-long movie that they just sat through. Okay, so tell me about the mid-credit scene. It's apparently with Hobbs.
Yes, yeah. The mid-credit scene reveals that The Rock is back, which
that's exciting.
So that was surprising to me, because there was this very public like rift between Vin Diesel and The Rock, and basically The Rock was like, I'm done. I'm not doing any more of these movies. And so then to see him pop up in a mid-credit scene, I was very confused. But it's had me wondering if if we're back into like the like old school like wrestling stuff where like two wrestlers would have beef with one another, but it would just be like a publicity stunt. Like I
That's
wonder
what I was thinking. Yeah, that's
if
what I was
we're
thinking.
doing some
PR.
stuff like that of like, because I thought I believed it. I thought that he was done, and so then he showed up, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked to see his
Ah,
face. So if that's what they were going for, they succeeded with me. They tricked me. So it was a handy little reveal.
okay. And then something about how he's Dante's next target,
Yeah, yeah.
which means that apparently Dante is the set up to be the primary
Mhm.
villain for the
Yes.
next movie, at least.
Yeah, he's trying to take out everybody. So,
Mhm.
but honestly,
Okay.
okay, the other thing that I would love, because now we have this little team up with Charlize Theron and Letty and Giselle, and I wonder if it's going to be three badass chicks go and just take out Dante, because
Mm.
he wasn't able to take out, like the dudes weren't able to take him out. So it'd be nice if this team up of chicks was able to come in and like save the day. That would be nice.
I love that.
I would
I
like that a
mean,
lot.
they're all just so athletic,
They
and
could do
the
it.
physicality, yeah, of those fight scenes would be
Yeah.
so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Um,
I think there's nothing that they can't do. So I would believe it.
right? And I think that there could be an interesting dynamic, not me like trying to weave in some gender politics here, but
Oh, please
to
weave.
have
Yes.
Jason Momoa just like completely underestimate them, so his guards down, and then they just come in and take him out, and that's his weakness, is because he's a misogynist asshole. That could be fun.
That'd be
And then
great.
we replace him with someone that actually makes sense for this finale
then like then
for the
we
next
could
movie.
have, okay, so the ladies come, take him out, boom, done, easy.
Goodbye.
Cypher
Yes.
gets her stuff back
Oh
and
yeah,
then
she
goes
turns it
back
on.
to her evil ways, but then she also like pulls some other people to her side,
Yes.
and then she is the big bad for the last movie and a half.
I like it. I like
And
it.
she could do it.
And it makes sense for her too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. We got it. We have the next two movies ready to go. If the Fast and the Furious team would like to contact us, we'd be happy to help. Justin Lin,
We
just hit us
mhm.
up. We got you.
We have some ideas for you. I would
Yep.
also just love to see, let me add some more things into here. I would love to see people just turn on Dom for a little bit, you know? Like I think he needs to have his like
Yeah.
moment at the bottom of the well.
Yeah. Have
And
some
then
conflict.
yeah, then the loyalties are like reignited again for whatever reason, somehow, some way, because
Hmm.
they just love him and they love his barbecues.
I mean,
But like they're all just so loyal to him that I'm like,
yeah.
okay. He's not Don Corleone, people, all right? Please.
But he is Dom, which is close to Don. So, you know,
Mhm. He's
but I
Dom
like it.
Toretto.
I like it. I think that that would be a good idea, because we've had a lot of external foes. There's been fewer internal conflict. You know, there's always been some,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's ever been a sizable rift between main characters. It's always
Mhm.
been like an external force has created a rift rather
Right.
than, and then they always like patch it up.
Mhm. With a nice barbecue.
Hey man, don't underestimate the power of barbecue.
The reconciliation that can be ushered in with some barbecues and Corona is underestimated.
It's true. That is a main pillar of the Fast and the Furious franchise, is barbecues and Coronas.
There, yes.
I mean, it's that and cars.
And protein powder.
That's right. You got to be jacked.
The amount of protein powder that has probably been consumed by the actors in these movies is beyond me.
Oh yes, I
Can you
far
imagine?
more than any human should. And
Oh
I mean, let's be
gosh.
honest. Like steroids to get that
Oh,
big.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's too much.
We could build like entire mountains from the protein powder.
It's true.
Entire mountain ranges.
You're not wrong.
And we could fill the like entire deserts too.
Yes. Yeah, the sand will no longer be sand. It will be
It's
protein
just
powder.
whey protein powder.
Yes. That's all.
Okay, other thoughts about this movie? Oh, okay, I had one,
Yes.
which reminded me a lot, yet again, of another very popular action franchise, which is the Bond series. But this whole trope around this tough fighter becomes a father, and then his softest spot becomes his children, his child. I just think it's so interesting to me how we somehow just love this uh this character trope of the father who's incredibly competent. He's an action star. He's lived many lives at this point and cheated death a million times and seems to be fearless and macho in all of the ways that classic American Hollywood loves to paint this like macho man figure. But it always comes down to children of any kinds. For Bond, I think it was his daughters in his final finale with the Craig.
Oh, that's right. He had a kid.
Yeah, and that was the
Oh.
big emotional moment for Bond's ending as a character in at least the Daniel Craig series is he becomes a father, and that's worth sacrificing himself for, is to take out this like big villain in order to sacrifice for a better future for his family and what blah blah blah, right? And we kind of I feel like are seeing a similar thing. I don't know if it'll be sacrificial, but in the ending, but there is this like that is the core emotional dynamic of these final movies is Dom Toretto desiring to protect his child, but that is also portrayed as to his to his foes it's his Achilles heel. For him eventually we will obviously see that it is his source of strength, but it just is fascinating to me that we love to see that trope again and again and again. We love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. And I think the reason why that trope works a little bit better for me in Fast and Furious than it does for me in that Daniel Craig Bond movie. I've completely wiped that tidbit from my
Yeah,
brain about Bond. But I think it works better here because that has been a consistent character trait of Dom for a lot of the franchise. Like he and not about a kid, but he
family.
yeah, it's the whole family thing, which is ridiculous. And they say family every 5 minutes in this movie. But that has been a core theme of this film is that he is willing to do anything for his family. And past villains have used that against him as well. And so it it wasn't that unbelievable for me to see him in that role,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it is his kid. Like obviously you have like a great connection to your child, um, but it works for me because it's the ground has been laid over
Mm-hmm.
X number of movies that he is willing to sacrifice for his family, and now that he has a biological family, he for sure is willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's laid far better than Bond, who is spent his entire life just taking people as an assassin, which inherently you have to be emotionally disentangled to execute well in that role. Um, but I just think that there's something about this type of character who has this softness to him, and I think there's something about that. The softness comes from the love and the bond that they have for their kid. Um, but it's just fascinating how many movies like use that to create emotional stakes for these like big ending finale sequences, whether it's the final scenes of a movie or it's the final several movies. There's something about that that just works every time. It's gonna hit people in the feels, and we see it again, yet again.
And we do love like the macho man with a soft, gooey center. Like
We love
we
it.
love that, and so we see that played out in this particular scenario. And I think when a kid is involved in the action, it makes you more stressed. At least it does for me. And you want the protagonist to win even more because a child's life is at stake. So it raises the tension, it raises the stakes, and you are more emotionally invested because there is a child involved. It's just, it is what it is.
It works.
It
That's why they keep
works.
doing it. But then I'm thinking, man, we just get men with kids in big explosions. That's the ending of any great franchise, apparently.
Yeah. I wish that we could figure out something else to do instead, though.
That's what I'm saying. I think you bring up a good point, though, which is that this works much better for this franchise because it's been part of the brand for so long. In some of the other ones, I'm like, oh, here we go again. But I'm still emotional, so
Yeah.
good job. But also, now that it's ended, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
We're doing this again?
Yes.
It works.
It does. It does. Gets you every time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts about Fast X?
Okay. Shall we do some shout outs and some silly things?
Yes, please. I know you have a rant.
Oh, okay. Oh
About a
gosh,
snack.
there's gonna be a few things on this one. Okay, so first, did you spot any pinky rings?
I
Jen!
need you to ask me this question when it's like a very slow, still drama because there's too many cars exploding for me to notice figuring. No, I did not. Is there a very obvious one? It sounds like
There
there's a very obvious
there
one.
is a very obvious one.
Is it by our dude, Jason Momoa?
Our dude, yes, Dante is wearing a pinky ring on his
Oh
right
my
hand. He's also
goodness.
wearing a number of rings. Like
Yes, he does.
hands
What
are just
a ring.
covered in them.
I love a scene where he shows up with a little scrunchie and a high pony. That was my
Yes.
favorite.
Yes. I also appreciated the little like Princess Leia buns that he had going on in one scene. It was
So
very
great.
cute.
Okay, this is a good data point. This is a very good data point.
Yes. Yes. This supports the hypothesis.
Very well. Squarely right in the center of the circle.
Nailed it.
Good stuff. Okay.
Okay. I would also like to give a shout out to the gentleman who watched Fast and the Furious at 10 a.m. on a Friday morning and fell asleep halfway through. I am impressed.
Were these gentlemen my father? Because my father can fall asleep in any kind of action movie.
He looked young, like probably like 30s-ish. Like
at 10 a.m. though.
At 10 a.m. though. So like I can kind of understand, but also like why are you going to pay? I mean, granted, it was only like $7 because it was the matinee, but like, why are you going to leave your house, drive to a theater, pay money, and then fall asleep during this movie?
For a very loud nap.
It's a very loud nap. So I had mad respect for him for being able to fall asleep halfway through a Fast and Furious movie.
Just very loud white noise.
Very loud white noise.
Because white noise can be soothing. And, perhaps the hum and the explosions and the fires just soothing for the man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was fun.
That's amazing. That's impressive.
Right? I was impressed.
That's how boring this movie was for him. The cake was not caking for him. It was not working for him.
It was not. It was not the adrenaline rush that he needed that day. I mean, it is 10 a.m., so like I get it. Mornings are hard.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
What do you do with the rest of your day after a 10 a.m. Fast experience?
just go about your day.
Unless you're
Like
just
you just
hyped after that, yeah.
honestly, like
Maybe it's
driving
the most
home
productive day ever after.
driving home was the worst part because I just wanted to speed like crazy. And I passed a cop on the way home and
Oh,
thankfully saw him early enough and was able to slow down so that I did not get a ticket. But I was like, wow, this is
you had some, like, blue liquid flying out of
I was ready. Man, it was great that I didn't have any
back of your
NOS
car.
in my car. You know, I was ready to race.
Oh, man. I'm just picturing you in, like, a spray painted gold car, like, just strolling through the highways at an even 60 miles per hour, but, like, hands gripping the wheel, just ready to hit the gas.
I was ready. I wanted to race after this, but
Mhm.
I am not in the Fast and the Furious franchise and
Oh,
really don't want to get a ticket. So I controlled myself.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
This is very good.
That was my biggest accomplishment of that day, was not getting a ticket.
Okay, other things, other silly things,
uh,
fun things.
Another silly thing, there was a speck on the screen in my 10 a.m. showing on a Friday morning. It was
Where
very
was the
distracting.
spec? And also, please tell everyone when the a very similar movie that you also saw a spec in.
Okay, I have a problem. It was nearly centered. So vertically, it was in the center and it was
Oh.
just a little bit to the left.
Oh, that's not good.
It
Come
was
on, the
not
center.
great. It was all that I could focus on. It was very distracting. The little tiny speck.
See,
Uh,
that amidst the fire and
yes,
the glass and
yes.
the
I could see the little speck. It's one of those things like once you know it's there,
yeah, you can't unsee
you
it.
can't unsee it. It's very
Okay,
distracting.
so if we ever go to the next time we go to a movie theater together in person, I need you to tell me after the movie ends.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, I would not torture you. I don't want you to have this experience that I have.
But hopefully there's a mid-credit scene where I can also observe the spec with images on the screen, so I've gotta make sure it's a Marvel movie.
Okay, great.
I'm kind.
We can arrange this.
Okay,
Don't you
perfect.
worry.
Right in the center is tough.
Oh, it's
That's a tough
rough.
one.
It's rough.
'Cause the other time you had a spec was in the top left, right?
There's been a few of them.
Oh, no.
Well, because there was the Phantom Thread one, which was just torture. Because it was
That one I understand.
it was a beautiful movie, and just all I could see was just the speck. And then I think the movie you're referring to is Ready Player One. There was an issue with that screen during that movie.
Oh,
That
yeah, that's
was
right.
not a fun time. I know it's happened other times, but
Again,
I can't remember.
another, like, visual stimulation overload movie where I'm like, "How no.
I
How are there
was
spec
I
there's
was
specs
so
everywhere."
overloaded with Ready Player One. Honestly, there were times when I just stared at the spec because I was too overwhelmed by the
I was
whole
gonna say,
movie.
was it soothing for you?
Yes, I sought
Your
solace in
lifeline?
the spec. I think it was like red. It was like these like red pixels that were just there for the entire movie. That was what that was.
It's like the equivalent of, like, the character moseying down a river nearing the waterfall amidst, like, all of the whitewater
Yes.
rapids, but they're just clinging desperately to a log.
Yes, that
Spec is your log.
those red pixels were my
Saved
log
your life.
during Ready Player One because that movie was way too much for me. I was
See, if
very
we're watching
overwhelmed.
Ready Player One together, I need you to tell me so that I also can cling to the log with you, because I
Oh,
was
okay.
overwhelmed.
That was my bad. That was I did not share my log with you when we watched Ready Player One. I'm so sorry.
Oh, man. Okay. Other silly things? Fun things?
My last thing is I would like to give a shout out to this movie for reminding
Uh-huh.
me that DeLoreans still exist. Cypher pulls up to Dom's house in the beginning of the movie driving a DeLorean. Who knew
Oh.
that they were still in business and still making cars? Because I did not.
Look
So
at that.
that was nice.
Apparently you need to be like bleeding out from your side. It's a
Yes.
prime moment for those. Yes.
Yes. In order to get a DeLorean, you either need to be friends with a mad scientist and need to go back in time, like in Back to the Future, or you need to be bleeding out of your side and then you get a prototype DeLorean.
Yes.
Those are your two options.
Yes. Because, like, man, at least you get some consolation for the fact that you might be dying momentarily.
Man. You get a pretty sweet new car.
From your woods.
Love it. I mean, that sucks if you're going to die, but you got a cool car, so.
Yeah, you've got something to transport you to eternity.
In your DeLorean.
In style.
It can go back in time or it can transport you into eternity. Which way would you like to go?
One of two options. Yeah.
Now there's going to be a whole like spin-off of like if you go X, because it was 88 miles an hour in Back to the Future. So if you go X number in the new DeLorean, you can go to X place.
Yes. But it's only activated if it can sense the fact that the blood is seeping out onto the seat.
Ah, I see. So they built in some safeguards because they learned from Back to the Future that you can't just let anybody have this power. Yeah. So they've built in some stuff.
Style comes at a cost, you know?
So
what do they say about like high heels? Like beauty is pain,
you
know?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be looking good in this car. Even if you're bleeding out, you got to be looking good.
Yes. All right, well, this was our review and discussion of Fast X. You can find it available out in theaters. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Movies and Us. Our name sums it up. We're all about movies and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. Everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you hung out with us today. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you tune into your favorite shows. Drop us a review letting us know your thoughts about Fast X. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at MoviesAndUsPod, or email us at moviesanduspod@gmail.com. We'll be back next week to discuss the film Blackberry. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you very soon.